I stepped on an IED in Afghanistan.
Joshua Erickson got out of the military in 2013 after losing his leg in combat. His bright smile that once proudly coupled his Army uniform has since been replaced with pain management each time he walks long distances with his prosthetic.
It's pretty sharp and sudden.
In 2015, he found himself homeless, living on the streets for nearly 8 years, so making medical appointments and counseling sessions for post-traumatic stress disorder nearly impossible.
So I just get around on foot, public transportation or bike when I had one.
About 2 months ago, he moved into an 8x8 shed on the West LA Veterans Affairs campus, which does have more than 200 apartments, with more being built. But Erickson doesn't qualify because federal rules are locking many disabled veterans out of government-funded housing.
They say I make too much.
Here's why. The most significantly disabled veterans receive nearly $43,500 in disability compensation annually. But to qualify for a housing voucher, a veteran's income can't exceed, on average, $44,150.
You give me money, you award me this money, and you punish me with it.
Devin Sessom is among more than a dozen plaintiffs who are suing the Department of Veterans Affairs, the Department of Housing and Urban Development, and the Housing Authority of the City of Los Angeles over a rule that counts veterans' federal disability and Social Security benefits as income.
Could you please take my Social Security away from me? I don't want it no more. It's killing me.
I just think it's insane.
One of the attorneys working on behalf of the homeless veterans says the rule isn't in the books.
It's so perverse that the more disabled you are, the less likely you are to get into the few existing housing units.
In 2011, LA County had about 1,200 unhoused veterans when a previous lawsuit was filed. 4 years later, the VA entered into a settlement to house all 1,200 at the West LA VA by this year.
The settlement's not worth the paper it's written on.
Following the settlement, the VA promised to build 770 units last year, but only 233 have come online. So a new lawsuit was filed to force the VA to make good on its promise to build 1,200 units within 5 years instead of the VA's current plan of 2030. The Westwood campus sits in the district of Councilwoman Tracy Parks, who was able to get the income threshold raised by as much as 30% in some of the units at one of the new buildings that opened in February. She says more needs to be done.
It's something that even I, as the daughter of a U.S. Army veteran, didn't realize. I don't think most people are aware of it, and I think if they did know, they would be furious.
In the past, HUD officials have said changing the rules would result in veterans with disabilities paying much less towards rent than non-veterans with disabilities.
It always seems like fighting against common sense.
But veterans advocate Rob Reynolds says disability benefits are not taxable.
It's not an income, it's a compensation for the loss of the use of something, i.e. like someone's leg.
He says while the VA hasn't taken meaningful steps to house veterans, the nearly 400-acre campus does house a sports complex for the private Brentwood schools and a baseball field for UCLA. The lawsuit is also challenging the VA's leases with those schools on land that was deeded in 1888 to be a soldier's home.
They're the most disabled. They need to be close to where they get their medical care. They need to be close to the mental health care, and they need to be within their veteran community.
2 years ago, the encampment known as Veterans Row was cleared out, and the sheds went up as a stopgap, not as a long-term fix.
Do you struggle with any substance abuse?
No.
Joshua Erickson says the tiny homes don't have toilets or running water, so these porta potties are tough on disabled veterans who use wheelchairs or prosthetics.
What do you want to say to people who say to you, well, at least you're in a tiny home? Is that good enough?
Hell no. Nah.
Why is that?
I mean, this is America. I've never settled for it. I won't settle now.
The case is currently in federal district court. The judge has scheduled a hearing next Thursday morning, and he's expected to rule on whether the lawsuit can proceed to trial. The VA, HUD, and HACLA have all declined to comment because of pending litigation, while LA County says the number of homeless veterans has grown to nearly 4,000. In the newsroom, Jeff Nguyen, KCAL News.